Hello, everyone, and welcome to World Class Tech Talent Podcast. We have an amazing guest today named Stephen. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Vikas. Nice to have me. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And in this episode of World Class Tech Talent Podcast, our guest speaker, Stephan Schmidt, is going to cover insights about the secret sauce of successful CTOs. So, let me give you a brief introduction about Stephan. Stephan is a technology veteran whose journey began as a self taught programmer in 1981. That's before I was born, and evolved through roles of a serial startup founder, engineering manager, and CTO of an eBay Inc. company. With deep expertise in artificial intelligence dating back to his university studies, Stephen now serves as a CTO coach, and that's our area of interest for today, helping technology leaders navigate the current industry disruption. His unique perspective, bridging the evolution from early computing to today's AI revolution, positioning him as an ideal guide for developers and managers facing strategic technological disruption. That's an amazing career journey. But Stephen, my first question would begin that I have interacted with lot many CTOs as in my career, but how this transition happened, that how did you choose to become a CTO coach?
So I was for a very long time in the industry, and I was for a very long time, 25-year plus, an engineering manager. And the last position I held was the CTO of the startup of my wife. And so I worked with my wife in a startup, and then she sold her startup to a competitor successfully. And so I had the opportunity to think about what to do. And basically, because I always wished for someone to help me when I was the CTO, because there were very, very tough moments, people shouting at you, website down, incidents, pressure. I wanted to talk to someone, but there was no one like 20 years ago. And I also liked helping people. I put a lot of effort into one-on-one, into people development. So combining these two things, I thought, why not become a CTO coach? And that's the reason I became a CTO coach something like 7 years ago.
Oh, that's so interesting. And how many like coaches you had so far? Like how many people you have coached so far?
I think so, 80 plus. So between 80 and 100. That's the current count. Depending on how you count, I also do some helping some founders with startups on the tech side. So yeah, something roughly between 80 and 100.
Okay, that's a good number. And so how do I become a CTO? Like, what are the key ingredients of becoming a CTO? What do you want to share with our audience today?
I think the first thing from my experience to become a CTO is you need to want to become one. It can't be a faint wish. I would wish to become a CTO at one time. I think to become a CTO, it really needs to some discipline to become a CTO and to get to that position. A lot of people I look at and people I know, they often sidestep. They are a team lead, they are a tech lead. They get another offer from another company for a tech lead position, nicer company, more money, and so they join another company as a tech lead. Or they are the VP of engineering, and so they join another company as a VP of engineering. And I think if you really want to become a CTO, don't sidestep in your career, but move forward. That, I think, is the most important thing to make it to a CTO. The easiest way is probably found your own startup, because then you can give your CTO title yourself. But there are the downsides of working in your own startup. So that's also a very rocky ride.
Okay, so one of the thing is that one should have that ownership. Like, if they want to become a CTO, be a CTO, not just any technical leader who is just stepping with when they are seeing good opportunities, right?
Yeah. If you sidestep, you're not making, you can't move forward. And big mistake, yeah.
Got it. And if a large company is hiring a CTO, so I am the CEO, and as a large company, we are hiring a CTO. What are the best practices for the large company to hire CTOs?
I think the biggest thing, you need to understand why you want a CTO, what problem do you want to solve, in which situation you currently are. And I feel like I've talked to a lot of companies who are very focused on the role, but not too much focused on why they want one, what is the most important thing to look into a CTO from their perspective. Should the person be a visionary, very strategic, someone who can do a turnaround? So there are very different types of CTOs with very different experiences, and you need to find out what you want to do. There is no unicorn in the market who can someone who can do it all. You need to understand what's your challenge, what's your particular challenge, and then find the right person from there. So I think that's when I talk to people, when I talk to CEOs trying to find a CTO, they just think often, not everyone, but a lot of them just think, oh, I need a techie as on the board. And it's not, it does not go far beyond that. And that sometimes because the CEO has not enough experience in tech to make that call. That's also why I helped some in the past founders to find a CTO, or not to find one, but to define what they really, really need.
Okay, so we need to have a clear understanding of the problem statement, as you mentioned, that we are trying to solve, and what we are exactly looking from the CTO.
Yeah.
Right. And
I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and just probably a side question coming out of that: is it good to probably give a promotion to an existing person, or get a CTO from outside? What works best? Just curious.
So I'm a huge fan of promotion. Like one of the best thing I think there was a lot of good things at eBay, but one of the very best things at eBay is at the time when I was there was a lot of ongoing promotion inside the company. So there was a tendency to promote people over hiring external people. And the reason for that was, or what enabled eBay at that time to do this, that eBay had a very clear talent management setup and really understood what are the talents in our company. So when there was a need for hiring a CTO, hiring an executive to manage cross-border sales or stuff like that, eBay had a clear understanding who are our top talents, who can we promote in that. That's a necessity to do this. But I'm a huge fan of promotion. It's much faster, it's less risky, and it has a lot of effects on the company. If you promote from internal, then a lot of people see, oh, this is a company who promotes people, so I have a chance to stay in this company and make my career inside the company. That said, there needs to be a mixture, and you need to hire outside people, because I've seen companies who only promote from the inside, and they it's a harsh word, but they kind of degenerate. There are not a lot of new ideas, and so they only have the same ideas. There is a lot of groupthink. So at the right time, for the right problem, it's very, very important, I feel, to hire external people to get new ideas into the company.
Okay, so though you prefer promotion, which is an organic form of growth in a company, having said that, we should have that cross pollination where we are also hiring external talent so that we have a mix of both.
Yeah.
Right. And any interesting hiring, probably a story that you came across by a large company that you want to share with us, like before we move forward to the next question? Just a thought. Anything interesting?
Well, I was hired. I was hired as in a company to help the company introduce Scrum at that time, and also to build a new team. And they said, yeah, well, we also need to check your programming credentials. And the interviewing process was so brutal. And then I said, oh, I want to join that company because the interviewing process was so brutal. That was the main reason to join the company. And I learned a lot for my later career for hiring from that process, and from one person in particular in that process I took a lot of things from that person for hiring. And then when I started, they said, "Oh, Stefan, we're sorry, we don't have the position we hired you for. You need to be a programmer for a month." So I became a programmer for a month, and then the position was done, and then I could become build that team and build that department for the company. But yeah, that was I think that was an interesting hiring story, at least for me at that point.
No, this is
Surprising one.
actually because as we are asking about a large company also checking the programming, that what is your programming strength, that itself is quite interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we have discussed enough about the large companies, but today's it's an age of unicorns, startups. And when I'm attending any conference, every other founder is having this question that how to hire the CTO. So the question goes to you. So if I am running a startup, how to engage a CTO for my startup?
Don't. I think one of the mistakes I see. So if you find someone who's great, hire the person. All fine, all fine. But I think a lot of founders make the mistake of hiring their first tech hire is a CTO. They hire someone, perhaps they can't pay the money, so they give the title. But the real challenge for a CTO, from my perspective, in a startup is that the job totally changes every 6 months. So when you're the first person, you're writing code. Then you're hiring people. You become a team lead. You need to manage people. Then you need to step up. You need to go into strategy, support business. You need to probably go on the board, talk to investors. So when there is a Series A or after a seed. So the CTO position really, really changes a lot. And your first tech hire might not be the person that enables you to go the next 24 months, but it might be with someone only for like getting up to a team lead, perhaps, or even only going up to a senior developer from their capabilities of growth. So that's a big mistake. And having a CTO in the beginning, it's very, very difficult to then make the judgment call and take the title away. If I say, "Oh, you can't make it as a CTO," I take your title away. That creates, obviously, for obvious reasons, a bad mood and a lot of bad blood. So it's a very difficult thing to do that companies struggle. I would say hire a tech lead, and then connect that to milestones. And if they can make those milestones, you promote them. Let's say first prototype delivered, or the MVP built, or the first 1,000 customers, and then say, okay, if we reach that milestone, we promote you to a CTO position. So that makes it less risky, and you also kind of have in mind, by writing down the milestones, everyone is aware of what the growth curve of that person needs to be.
That sounds interesting. That first probably have a tech lead kind of profile and setting up the milestone. So you give two beautiful indicator for those milestone. One, it could be that first prototype is out in the market, and second, it could be acquisition of first 1,000 customer. It may vary
Yeah.
based on the individual startup. What could be the other milestone? Because I think this is very interesting for a non-tech entrepreneur to think, because they don't know about these terminologies in the beginning.
So the customer thing is basically about traffic, and it depends of if you're B2B or B2C, but it shows that the platform that has been built is kind of scalable to some level. And other milestones that are relevant to me are hiring the first person, hiring a team lead, delegation to a team lead, having a setup, implement a process. All of these things could be milestones that need to be achieved to promote a person on team lead, head of development, VP, engineering director, CTO, or something.
Okay. And so that's a interesting insight, that in most cases don't hire a CTO immediately, probably hire a tech lead and then set up the milestone, and then the person can upgrade to the milestone. And for a probably a side question to this question, that if there is, it's co-founded by two people, where one is a business person and another is already a technical person, so eventually they will take up the tech role, right? one will become the
Yeah.
CEO and the CTO. How do you define the because as you already mentioned that in the initial phase there is most of the thing which are happening on the business side, so how do you define the hairline difference that okay, these are the responsibilities, what are the key responsibilities of the CTOs and what remains in the hand of CEOs? Any broader thought? Because when we are meeting lot many people are starting companies even out of their colleges and not having that clear insight that what should be the first movement after thinking about starting a company.
The first thing I wanted to say about this is I encourage all your tech viewers and listeners to start a company. Don't wait for a business person. Do it yourself. If you take a look at the US, Mark Zuckerberg, Bezos, Omidyar, Musk, all of these people are techies. All of these people at one point or another have been programming. So I think what's really the difference between Silicon Valley and the rest of the world is in the US, techies are founders of companies. Also, Sergey, Google, all of these people, all of them have been techies. I think that's the biggest difference between the US and everyone else. So I encourage all techies to found a company, and you can do it. If there is a split, if you have a co-founder, having two people, some stuff is more difficult. Like you need to discuss a lot of things, you need to align, you need to agree. That's more difficult. But also sometimes it's easier because you have an up, the other person has a down, so that mellows out. It's not as stressful if you're two persons compared to being just one person. What I think from my experience, what should be with the CEO and what's most important for the CEO, from my perspective, is have a vision for the company. No one else can do that. You're the CEO, you have a vision, probably. And a vision is not a product idea. A vision is more than just a product idea. A product idea is part of the vision or part of the strategy. So that's very important for the CEO. And what they should keep is understanding the customer and the market. When I talk to founders, I think the biggest mistake from my perspective, I don't want to be judgmental, but from my perspective, they are not talking enough to customers. They're not understanding the market. As a CEO of a startup, in your niche, you should be the person in the world who understands the market and the needs, not the wants, but the needs of your customers most. So that's one thing. And I think the other part could be that the CTO also takes on a CPO role, so also takes on product. So it's product and tech. It's a CPTO role, which works fine. And that also, we might go into that later, but that's also very useful in a transition to AI.
Okay, that's even more interesting. So the title of this podcast, the secret sauce of successful CTOs. So what is the secret sauce? If you want to define 3-4 key attributes, whether it's a small startup or the large enterprise, what are the 3-4 attributes, key attributes that is the secret sauce behind a good and successful CTO?
So I have met many CTOs. I did also mentoring. I'm doing mentoring on the side, beside coaching. So on mentoring platforms, so I meet a lot of CTOs. So and everyone is different, and every successful CTO is different. That said, I think from my perspective, the most important thing is, as a CTO, only do the things that you can do. Do only the things that only you can do. A lot of CTOs do a lot of other stuff, but you should focus on what me in my position, what are the things that only I can do and no one else can do. That's very important. Might be vision, tech vision, strategy, might be other things. So I think that's very important. Otherwise, you're neglecting the stuff that should be done. So that's one part of that. The other part of that is it's connected. Is ruthlessly delegate everything. You need to be really good at delegation if you grow up, and that's a little bit of a difficult, especially in a growing company, because you have 5 direct reports, works, then you have 20 people in the department, then you have 50, and if you have not started early on to delegate, you're breaking yourself and you're breaking the organization. So that would be the second thing. That's very important. And I wrote a small book which is called Amazing CTO, which
Okay,
has
that's great.
140 rules, I think, for being amazing and stuff that you need to do to be amazing. But I think these are two things. And the third thing that I often do not see in CTOs that I think is very, very important is being an executive, acting as an executive. You're not the chief nerd. You're not the nerd with the biggest title in the company. You're an executive, and you need to act as an executive. And you also need to understand business. In most of the companies, if you're not a very, very specialized company, let's say SpaceX, CTO probably, I don't know them, but I can understand there is so deep technology that you can be totally focused on technology. But in a majority of companies, as a CTO, you need to understand the business part of things. And when I was CTO in several companies, or engineering manager or CTO, and I left, and the team tackled very difficult technical problems and challenges. And I and the team, we were very proud on what we accomplished. And when I left, the CEO or other people said, Stephan, do you know what's great about you? You could explain tech to us, and you understood business. That was valued most, whereas I valued all the very deep technical challenges we solved. So I think that's the third thing, be an executive and understand business.
Okay, so three things, just to summarize for our people who are watching the show and people who are going to watch in the future. One, do only thing which you can do. Don't step into the other tasks, because what if you are stepping into the other roles, you may be leaving apart the key things which are required for you, like tech vision. It can be strategy. Second is delegation. One should be very good at delegating things, and one need to balance it out, especially in the growing company, as you mentioned. And to be an executive, because you will be interacting with your tech team, if there is, or probably as an individual, how to create a deep tech startup. And on the other hand, also talk to non-tech business owners and understanding the key requirement of the business. So how to balance these two things. So these are the three things. And you mentioned about your book, and I'm sure it must be available, the link must be available on your website, which is right now I'm showing amazingcto.com, right?
Yes, the book is there. It's also on
Yeah,
Amazon.
it's on Amazon. So people, do buy that book so that you can actually know. And there are how many? 140 key principles?
Yeah, something like 140, I think.
Oh,
Perhaps
that's
more, but at least 140.
at least 140. So
Yeah.
you will actually understand, guys, the secret sauce behind becoming an
Yes.
amazing CTO. Your title itself is so interesting, amazing CTOs. That covers it all. Now,
Yep.
moving forward, the one of the key thing, the thing which is impacting the industry is the AI. Everybody's talking about AI, and it has gone to that level. Any product discussion, any discussion is not complete if you are not talking about AI. So even for the CTO, how can we leave that part? So in the AI era, how's the role of CTO is changing?
I can't predict the future. You know, if I could predict the future, I would play the lottery. I can't, so I don't play the lottery. But obviously, everyone is thinking about the future and how AI changes the role. And I've also spent a lot of time thinking about this. I gave some conference talks about this, and I'm talking to my clients about this a lot. I think, in general, tech and product will come closer together and perhaps even merge. There are discussions about product engineers being the next upcoming role that combines some part of product knowledge and some part of engineering knowledge. A person who can fuse these two things and then make an AI do the thing, write the code, whatever is necessary to make it happen. So there is a lot of discussion about this merger of roles. And I think if we look at the internet, at the arrival of the internet in Germany, that arrived in something 1990, World Wide Web something 1993, 1994, that also brought a lot of new roles, like the product manager role that we currently have, a product owner role, but also the engineering and DevOps roles. A lot of these roles that we currently have in many tech departments or tech startups, tech companies have been brought on by the internet, by the drivers of the internet, what the internet drove for role change. And I think
True.
the AI, we will not stay the same, and AI will also drive role changes. And one might be a product engineer. So if engineering takes on more product responsibility, I think there is a driver towards more, also the CTO taking on more product responsibility, perhaps being a CPTO, especially like with AI, it's much more difficult to create a kind of a waterfall process. Someone thinks up the problem, someone writes the code. In a lot of companies today, I see prototype first. So they start with a prototype by AI instead of writing a ticket. It's prototype first. Then they look around, and then that's put into production code. That's translated to production code. And I think coming from this, I think the CTO will take on much more product responsibilities on one hand, and it's for the next years. It's a very tough ride with a lot of changes and a lot of uncertainty with all the CTOs I talk to.
Okay, so probably it will reinvent the role. So you did not just talk about that. Definitely, one should grab the knowledge of artificial intelligence, which is non-negotiable skill. But you also talked about that probably it will reinvent the role. Probably the technical and the product management currently will start merging into one role with the changing behavior and changing possibilities with the AI, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's even more interesting. And we have a question coming from a CTO of our own company, Nikhil, that what's one I'll just display the question. So his question is that what's one leadership habit or practice you see leaders under leverage that consistently accelerate team performance and organizational impact? Any one quality that you see people not taking advantage of?
I think for a lot of CTOs, the biggest thing when talking about development performance is you need to talk about development performance. I think that's the most important stuff. You need to make sure that everyone knows that performance is important to you. Sounds obvious, but when I talk to clients and to people, they assume everyone knows performance is important, and then they wonder why the CEO thinks there is not enough performance. So that's one thing I think that's very, very important. And the second thing I think, which is very important, is you should have an engineering culture, and the engineering culture should be, in my view, I know that's very, very controversial, that's very out of the mainstream, but I think engineering culture should be top down and not bottom up. And I think that's the second thing. Implementing engineering culture from the CTO down also consistently accelerates team performance.
Okay, would you like to probably add some more lines to this line that it should be top down? What do you exactly mean by giving an example?
I mean the following. Often in too many organizations, I see engineering culture, and it might work. I'm not arguing that, but in a lot of companies, engineering culture is bottom up, and so it's from a perspective of a developer, and it does not have management buy-in. And if there is no management buy-in, if the engineering culture does not help you as a CTO, it's very difficult to keep up. To me, engineering culture is a tool for the CTO to scale an organization. If I have the right management engineering culture in place, for example, in my culture, it's always no shortcuts, or we're professionals. That's part of the culture. And if we have that in place, and it's a tool I as a CTO can use in meetings or making decisions or helping people make the right decisions, like no shortcuts, that's very, very helpful. And because it's helpful to me as the manager, as the top manager in the department, I will use it all the time. Otherwise, it might be something just pinned to the wall or be a nice thing in the Notion, on a Notion page, but it's not really lived. But if it's a tool to me, it's lived and it's useful and it's tied to performance.
That's That's quite insightful, and probably we can have another book from you on this engineering culture, the way you start defining, because that was quite interesting. We may have a intuitive understanding of this word, but the way you started defining it, no shortcuts, and if we can add some anecdotes that what do we mean by that, I think that itself is an amazing podcast topic or a
Yeah.
book, that what do we actually mean by engineering culture, great engineering culture.
Yeah.
Great. Before closing the podcast, I'll circle back to where we started about your journey. And one of the keyword that you mentioned, that you are a self-taught programmer. And in
Yeah.
my study, one of my book is dedicated towards that word, self-taught programmer. That I think that's one of the key ingredient of becoming ultra successful in any field. If you are self-taught person, so would you like to share some insights about how did you start becoming a self-taught programmer? What was your journey and how it helped you?
It was very, very simple. It was very, very simple. Like I'm 50 plus, so I grew up in the 70s. You can see from the color of my beard. And I was playing video games at the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, usually in the back room of a restaurant. When my parents or family went to a restaurant, there was an arcade machine. And so I came into playing video games. And then I had a lot of video game ideas in my head. And the only way to play the games I had in my head was to learn programming. And because like in the beginning of the 80s in Germany, people did not have a computer at home. So I went to a department store, and in the department store there were computers, VC20s, Commodore VC20s or VIC-20s, and later C64s. And then people did some programming there, and that I took a look, did the same, repeated that. Sometime later, bought my own computer. Had a small job as a kid, and then bought my own computer, and that's how I got into programming, becoming. And then I think that's very important for today. Like recently this year, I thought about that, and I got into programming because I thought I was a creator, or because I think I'm a creator. I had ideas in my head I wanted to create, and I needed a tool, and that was programming. And I think today, if you look at AI as a tool, and you like tools to realize your ideas, then we're living in a very, very great age currently, because it's like, but it was very difficult 40 years ago. Writing code, creating a game, doing the stuff becomes much, much easier today.
Okay, that's you defined it in very simple words, but I think that's a very very critical skill, that how one can develop becoming a self-taught person. Any last message to the youth, because nowadays I think lot many people are asking to Elon Musk, that or similar leaders, that if everything is changing so fast, what should we teach to the youth now? What should be taught in school? What should be taught in college? So any message for youth right now? What should they study?
I think schools and universities today should encourage students and people to become creators and to think as creators. We're going into an age of creation, where everyone can become a creator without becoming a programmer. And I think that spark of innovation, of thinking forward, of visualizing ideas, I think that's a very, very important skill to have. And that's what I think universities and schools should more focus on today.
That's even more interesting. And would you like to, before we close, would you like to share about your coaching program a little bit, like people who are interested in joining and attending and connecting with you, how it is defined, and what are the ways to engage with you?
Yeah, my coaching program is kind of simple. I focus on growing companies, usually startups, between 5 and 80 developers or 100 developers. That's my focus group. And it has 4 pillars. My coaching has 4 pillars, which is one, consulting. I help my clients get out of their current problems. Mentoring, I enable them with my experience to prepare for upcoming problems. Coaching, which is talking about their personal challenges, like giving pushback or delegation or holding people accountable. And the last one is branding, which means that people can see you the way you want to be seen. And so that's a program, and we do weekly sessions talking about this and getting through the program.
Okay, that sounds good. And contact details are mentioned below. So people who are watching right now, amazingcto.com is the go-to website for you. And we have also mentioned the LinkedIn down below. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for your precious time and sharing the secret sauce of successful CTOs with our viewers today.
Thanks, Vikas.
Okay, bye-bye.